later on from our website. So if in case they miss it or anything like that, you can also go back and watch it there afterwards. And so you don't need your cameras on, but if you'd like to, that would be great to you. And then, so yeah, today I'm happy to have Suzanne Norman, the publishing professor, and Magali Bureau, who is in her last semester as a communications student here today to take you through branding and portfolio creation. So first we're going to have Suzanne, and she's going to be presenting on branding, and then we're going to have Magali, who will give you some tips and tricks on portfolio creation. I'm just going to pause here for a moment because we have a few more participants. So just excuse me. It looks all good. And then so at the end, we're going to have 15 minutes for a Q&A session. But if you do have any questions that come up throughout their presentations, feel free to like pop that in the chat, and we'll be trying to answer those as well. But just keep in mind, there is a Q&A section at the end, so you also have an opportunity there to ask any questions you might have. We also have Naomi here today, who is the FCAT advisor, and she's going to be here to take attendance for co-curricular record credit. So just please make sure that your name on Zoom is the same name as your signed up one on the survey you did, just so we make sure we get you for that. All right, so yeah, you can also take the time now to quickly edit it, and then we can make sure we've got you there. And now I think I'll pass it off to Suzanne. Thank you.
Muted, still not, still doing that, right? With not unmuting myself. Okay, hi, it's really nice to be here. I'm not teaching this semester, so it's kind of like going back into teaching mode. I'm going to talk a bit about branding and a bit about how to promote yourself and to build an online presence, particularly for those who are interested in having a digital portfolio or digital locker that you can share with potential employers or friends, family, just ways you can build out a more of a professional online presence. So I'm going to do some slides. I'm also going to get you to find a piece of paper in your house somewhere now, take a couple of minutes, and a pencil or a pen. If you have any colors, crayons from little brothers or sisters or anything like that hanging around, pull those in as well. If you've got a few magazines, books around you, just gather those around you. So just take a minute to do that, and I'll set up the slides. If anyone has anything to chat about, feel free to put your hand up, or to, as Victoria said, leave a message in chat and she can pass it along, or you can raise your hand, or however she wants to do it. So we're going to talk about digital identities. I wish I had some cameras on so I could see your faces, but I'm wondering right off the top, how many of you, and you just do thumbs up, thanks Magali and Victoria for putting your faces up. It just makes it easier for everyone. How many of you off the top have a digital presence online? And that means Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, any of the social media platforms, any place where you're actually posting content. Can I have some thumbs up in the chat? Great. So quite a few of you. Not surprising, since we live in a digital world, and since we have been through, still going through a pandemic, and so everything is online. What I would like you to start thinking about as we go through this presentation is some of the places that you do post online and the types of content that you are posting. Just keep that in the back of your head as we're going through. Have your pencils and crayons at the ready, because we're going to get you to do a little bit of work. Can't have a class without work, right? So what we're going to cover: what is a brand? Who's your audience? Keeping it fresh, some best practices, some do's and don'ts, and some examples. I'm going to embarrass Victoria, I think, a little bit today, of past class things. So, okay, do you want me to admit this person, or do you still have control? Okay, it just pops up on my screen. First, I'm going to get you to, and this is going to be a little clunky switching over. I'm going to get you to go to menti.com, which is a Q&A place where we can ask questions and get your responses. So if you could pop over there now and enter this code 2319. Victoria, could you pop it into the chat? 23193510. And let me get out of here. And I'm just going to pull this up. Can you see my screen? Okay. Yes, great. Okay. Once you get to Menti, type in the code and answer the questions. Question. So it's name 3 brands. What I want you to do off the top of your head, don't think too hard about it. Just whatever comes to your mind. So I'm seeing a lot of companies. I don't see a lot of people who are also brands. And this is what we're talking about today. I see some Meta, yeah. Apple, Google, Nike. I'm surprised that Amazon isn't bigger. Kitty. So these off the top of your head, the first thing people usually think of when they think of brands, they think of companies and enterprises and things that they either purchase something from, an item or a service, or something that they use in everyday life. What tends to come a little bit later is people and platforms that individuals or 1 or 2 people create and have an online presence. So I think as you start thinking more about brands, it'll start to grow out a little bit more for you, and you'll start to see more people and other types of brands that come into play. I'm looking at Jennifer Lopez now. So those are the things, you have Jennifer, I'm surprised the Kardashians aren't up here. It might just be a mental block that no one really wants to post about them, but that is a huge brand and huge enterprise. And it's entirely mind-boggling how much money is involved with that brand. Okay, so I'm going to save that and pass it along to you at the end. Now I'm going to ask you to also go to Menti and enter this code 67751844. And this is a little bit of a fun thing to do. It's just 6 slogans or 5 slogans, I do believe. And I'll present this. And you basically have a few minutes to answer questions. So we'll start the countdown. It's a little bit of a competition, but not really.
Suzanne, was it 67751844?
Let me see. Okay, 31565077. It's changed for some reason. Okay. Okay. So this is all your avatars coming in. I've pressed this. It's not going to work for me, is it?
Could you repeat it one more time just so I'll put it in the chat?
31565077.
Thank you. There we go.
Okay. It's a fair number in here. So answer fast to get more points. You should have the questions in front of you, yes? Are they there?
People say no on the chat.
Oh no. Are you seeing this? Can you answer now? Yes, okay, great. Good job, kind of. Okay. Oh, look, we have Alex in the lead, Katie, Clippy. Good. All right, next one. I think these are not running the way they should, but let's just see what happens here. Oh. I don't know what happened here. Sorry.
Well, I'm not going to complain about winning, so.
Good. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Apologies for that. It should have been much more seamless, but I'm used to Zoom and online fiascos. So there you go. All right. So it was, I think there was Just Do It was in there. Democracy Dies in Darkness, which was the Washington Post. Just Do It, which we know was Nike. What else was in there? Oh, the Amazon logo was there, or sorry, slogan, and a couple of others, but I can send those to you too if you're interested in it. Okay, what's this? Pop it in chat if you want, yell it out. I can't see chat, so Victoria, you'll have to say it.
Lots of people saying memes and Bernie Sanders chair meme.
Yep. So is everyone aware of this? And if you're not, well, you will be in a second. When this happened, when Bernie Sanders was at the inauguration of Joe Biden, he sat and he had these mittens and it was just this iconic photo. How many of you knew who Bernie Sanders was before that? Just, you don't have to really answer, just think about it. When you saw this meme, because it was shared widely on all sorts of platforms, did you want to know more about who he was or where the picture came from? Did you dig into the history a little bit? Did you make a meme? If you didn't make a meme and you just sort of watched it passively, did you follow it along as it rose and fell in its usual cycle in social media? And was there something about it that struck you or struck a chord in you that made you want to see what was going to happen next, or where it was going to end up, or how the path of it was going, what the path of it was going to be as it went along? Usually when something goes viral, it hits something in somebody. It hits a sense, it hits a feeling, it hits something, a funny bone in a person, and makes them want to find out a little more about it. And if not a little bit more, it makes them just maybe want to follow along and see what happens, you know, the lurkers in the background. And there are a number of percentage of people who actually want to participate. So they go make their own memes. I'm showing you that because it's part of a brand. Bernie Sanders is a brand. He has a whole lot of characteristics and personality traits that we are aware of. And if we're not aware of them, we know a little bit about them. And I'm talking generally, and I know that not every one of you is going to know who Bernie is, and not every one of you is going to be familiar with the meme or any of the memes. But I wanted to talk about that a little bit because it's an example of what a brand can be. It's not a logo. It's not a slogan. It's not an image. It's not any one thing. In fact, logos and images and those types of things that we normally associate with the brand tend to come later, after the brand has established itself. A brand really reflects the core being of the company, the person, the enterprise that is trying to create an identity, either online or offline. Some of the branding may not even include a logo or slogan. It might just be a feeling, a word of mouth, or something that you know about. It basically showcases the core of what makes up a company and the driving forces for its existence, behind its existence. And branding is the process of building that coherent and distinct voice and story. You'll sometimes hear people talk about a backstory of a company, or even an about section of a personal blog. Those are all things that contribute to the identity of the brand, and whether it's a person or a product. And it's where we start to build on, add building blocks to create an overall feeling that we get when we talk about that brand. So just to double down on it, it's not just a logo or a mnemonic or a slogan. It is the feeling you get when you're around the brand, the feeling you get when you hear something associated with the brand. When Netflix comes on, what do you hear? Is that sound going through your head now? You don't need to see the Netflix logo. You can just hear it. Those are cues, but it's not just that. You get, if you see the Netflix logo, you hear the sound as well without even hearing it. You might think of the colors within the Netflix logo. And it could evoke different feelings in you. It could be like a really nice Netflix and chill night. It could have been a really horrible movie experience you had, a binge time you had when you were sick in bed. It evokes things in you. And when you hear about it in the future, you're going to think about that brand. Underpinning all the brands are personalities. Just like people have personalities, brands have personalities, except we typically call them characteristics instead of personalities. So if you want to dig into this some more, I can give you the information and you can look it up later, but there's a lot of information out there, a lot of books and academic papers about what defines a brand and the different types of personalities. The Hero and the Outlaw is one that comes to mind, which talks about all the archetypes that underpin brands. A fully formed brand fills the senses. So once you've matured to a fully formed brand, you should, as I was just referring to Netflix, you should be able to evoke a response in your audience or any consumer or person who's interested in your brand just by a sound, by a color, by a tone, by typeface or font. Colors for sure are really strong visual cues in a brand, and we'll talk about colors coming up next. And we'll go through typography, sound, and tone as well. So Angela Price is someone I follow, and I only started following her because I like her husband's work on the Montreal Canadiens, and I thought it was really interesting that she set up this blog and tried to do it independent of her husband's fame, which I think is a huge struggle. And it might be something that some of you face, and that is being in competition with somebody who's really close to you or being overshadowed by something. So but I liked her choice of colors. I think she has a really strong brand. You'll notice that she's got a lot of these neutral colors and pastels and that sort of feel. And you also can, so this is her Instagram, her Facebook, and her Twitter. So if you look further into it, or sorry, her blog, if you dig into the type of things that she's posting, you'll see very much a similar look and feel. So here she's got the same typeface that she does on her blog. She signs all of her blog posts with the same signature. She has the same kind of outdoor style and natural look. She does do a lot of work with a lot of different brands, and so she's able to pull in what she does by sort of taking it all into a cohesive look for her own brand itself. But she does have a lot of supply with other companies. So in terms of colors, every brand that we know of or we hear of has a very distinct color, and it's a really long process in determining which actual shade of color we're going to use. You'll notice SFU has its own red. That red is a very distinct red. It's not just red. It's a very, very specific red, and it goes with other colors sometimes, and sometimes it contrasts and clashes with other colors. It's interesting if you want to do a little deep dive into the SFU branding thing. I think you'd find a lot of useful information. But each color, as we have learned over time, has an association with it. And we tend to feel certain things. We have certain emotions that are evoked by different colors. Red tends to be danger and awareness, but it also can be used for love and kindness and hearts and flowers and Valentine's Day, those sorts of things. The NDP orange, and most recently, I think we're becoming more aware, thankfully, of Indigenous issues and reconciliation, and using the orange for Every Child Matters, and pathways to reconciliation. So we're starting to associate the orange with that now. Victoria's Secret, the pink, the actual typeface is very distinct. The dark, Nike, Chanel, we look at the boldness, the powerfulness, the simplicity of black and white. Those things evoke a certain feeling. So some of the things you can do, and as you are working through our slides, I want you to just keep notes on that piece of paper. Do you have a distinct color that you like? Is it different from competitors? Is it a certain shade? Go into a few of the CMYK tools you can use and RGB tools online and look for the different shades. You have these meters you can use to find certain shades. It might just be a little tweak that actually informs the color that represents you best. Look at how the color might be perceived in different cultures, in different environments, in different communities. And we'll get into audience in a second, but think about how that particular color might work or not work, or what kind of reaction it'll get in different environments and online communities. And is it flexible enough? Can you use it across all of your platforms? So typography. Typography is massive. There are so many different typefaces, and more are being created every second. There's so many tools that you can use now to create your own typeface. I wouldn't recommend it unless you have a lot of time and energy and are really talented in design. There's so many typefaces that there's one out there for you, for sure. And even if you tweak it a little bit. Different typefaces evoke different emotions. Just looking at these that I have on screen, you probably feel certain senses when you look at them. Braun, for example, to me, with that typeface, I think of men. I don't know why, but men and sort of masculine type bathrooms and things. Twitter, I think Twitter's is a little bit gray, because really Twitter is not that kind of fluffy blue anymore. Twitter is a bit of a cesspool, but it was what they started with, and I'm surprised they haven't changed it significantly since. Couple of others that you might be interested in just looking at a little closer after this. Any of the typography that you're using, think about how it might look on different platforms. So how does it look on Facebook, for example? How does it look in a larger font on Instagram? Can you make images out of it? Can you play with it a little bit more? Does it really condense well for readability and legibility? Are you able to actually use it for more than just text? can you use it as part of your imaging? Pay attention to all the shapes and curves and all the structural details. This one is from my colleague, Mauve Paget. This, I think, is a really fun thing to have a look at, and I'll stop on it for 5 seconds or 10 seconds. If you use this font, you are. And I mean, these are just very generic, but if you look at some of these, you'll start to see personalities behind them. So Century Gothic, for example, you're happy and sincere. Impact, romantic comedy aficionado, still in kindergarten, Comic Sans. So all typefaces have personalities, and what you need to figure out is, do they match you? Choosing typefaces, complement your logo or word mark. Not necessary to have either one of those, but when you do, it should complement it. It shouldn't clash. And try and limit your typefaces to 2. Think about not only how you feel, but by extension, what could develop with your brand down the road, and is it versatile enough and flexible enough to travel with you as you evolve your brand. Think for a second about what font feels like for you. And you can write this down. Like, what's your favorite typeface? What's your, are you Arial body? Are you a sans serif or a serif? And for those of you who don't know, serifs have little tails and feet on them, and sans serifs are blocky. Are you a cursive script? You might be a cursive script, but those are a little bit harder to read in on certain media. So you might want to tweak that or get a blend of a cursive script and a nice serif. Write down your favorite typefaces, and then when we finish here today, go have a look at them. So sound, when you use sound in branding, it's called sonic branding. It's just basically mnemonics, little beeps and dings and tings like Netflix that twig people and cue them to think about your brand and want to engage with your brand. It's kind of like the Pavlovia thing, right? Like where you have a sound and then the dogs go. Well, you think about Slack. I think you can hear them now, as there's somebody on my community typing on Slack, and you hear the tip, 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 right? Like people coming in the waiting room, ding dong, we hear them there. So we know that something is happening with Zoom. Your favorite shows, if you hear that, the intro, or just even a little piece of music, that can make you want to go watch the show. Is there something about your brand or what you're doing as an individual that can make people cue in by a certain sound? Is there something about you that really has a very significant and recognizable mnemonic? And tone is really about how you convey yourself or across all of your platforms. So say you have a website, and Magali is going to show you her website that she developed in one of my classes, and how she built on her tone and how that tone then plays across all of her social media platforms and the platforms that she chose in particular. So the feeling you get when you engage with a brand shouldn't change or change much across a different platform. Your Twitter presence should be really in line with your Instagram presence. Even though they're going to be completely different platforms, the feeling should still be there, and the way of your presentation should be there. And it's not just with the text, it's the sound and the color and the typography again. If you can think of some examples, make a note of them on your paper of things that come to mind very quickly. This one, and you can write this in the chat if you want. What senses do these brands activate in you? You notice I put in Groot and Baby Groot. So what are the differences there for you? What does Baby Groot do for you that maybe fully grown Groot doesn't? Are you more likely to engage with Baby or with fully? Anyone recognize what this is? So it's the Burning Man Festival. What does that evoke in you? Has anyone ever been? Like, what happened there? The Calm app, which is blown up, it's huge. What happens when you think about the Calm app? Does it sort of counter what happens at Burning Man, or maybe it counters what happens with the Trump enterprises, in my case? What about TikTok? And how do you think the thinking process went when they started designing the logo? It's very active, right? It's very moving, and things are happening. The Amazon logo. And of course I have to put the Habs in. All of these things together go towards creating your brand. And part of it, part of what you want to do as you're looking at who you are as a person and as a brand, and developing your online portfolios, is creating a style guide. And the style guide is going to have the colors and the color palette. So not just one color, but all the different shades that might go with it, and complementary colors. It's going to have your faces and your fonts. It's going to have the look and feel that you want to convey. And these are very different bloggers, but they all have a very distinct look and feel. You can put this together on that piece of paper. You can start pulling in images from magazines, things that best represent you. It doesn't mean it's going to be the final product. It just means that you're starting to gather things that feel like you. Look at SFUs. I'm not going to go to the website. I don't know what time it is, but I think I'm 1 through 6. Okay. So I've got about 15 minutes left. So SFU Style Guide has so much more than it did in the beginning. For one, they have templates for everything. If you want to do anything with that has the SFU branding, they pretty much have templates and resources for you to use. In whatever you do. We have a common look and feel at SFU. Our what's the word I'm looking for? Our logo, not our logo, our slogan or mission statement is about being an engaged university. So that means engaged in communities, engaged internationally. We've gone through, since I've been here, a number of different slogans and mission statements and directives, but generally they've all sort of revolved around engaging with the community and that grassroots kind of feel around SFU. So ask yourself, and you can do this in a Venn diagram, you can do it in any kind of way that feels right for you, that feels visually engaging for you, but ask about, like, who are you? What are your core values and products and services? Do you need just a static page of a portfolio of your work? Do you actually want to dive a little deeper in and have a working website? Free, you can do free, you can do low cost. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can market yourself. You could just have a Facebook group page. I always recommend doing a website as your base of operations, and then from there you can do anything else. But start looking at these bits about yourself. And the one thing I would add here is have confidence in who you are. Have confidence in what you do. One of the things in my classes that I have found is students take quite a while to get the confidence built up to be able to say, yep, okay, I'm a writer and my website's going to be a showcase for all of my writing. Yes, I'm a poet and my website is going to be showcasing my poetry. It takes a while because right now you're students and you probably feel like I'm a student now and I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that. And a lot of the text I get in my classes is I'm planning on, or I will be. No, this is who you are now. You're a photographer. You are an artist you are a blogger, you're a sports enthusiast, you're a book reviewer, you're an athlete, you're a business person, you're going to be selling seashells by the seashore. We like all of those things are definite, and you need to be very confident about who you are and what you're doing and what you're offering people. And it will show as you continue the process over time. You'll notice that your text, your content becomes more and more confident, and then it just sort of flows off. And when people ask you, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a photographer. You know, it's just there. That's who you are. That's what you do. And that's what you're selling in your online portfolio. So keep working with these ideas and words and pieces that really put together the whole you, that fully formed brand. Who is your audience? So this is more academic here. I tried to tone it down a little bit, but people get confused sometimes about what an audience is and what the public is. So if you think about it, a public is all of the people all around you witnessing itself doing different things in visible spaces or an online space. The public, not specific to an institution or any kind of community. It's sort of one of these hazy bodies of things that you think, okay, well, that's just the public talking, or let's consult with the public. It could be any number of things. Your public, your audience, your public may not be your audience may not be all of your public. So you're going to find your audience in your public, but you're also going to find a whole bunch of other audiences in your public that you need to pull in, and you need to be able to go find them where they are. So I use this one in my class. Is your audience all of Texas? Well, no, it's not. Which part of it is your audience? So if you're trying to do something, say, within Texas, are you more Houston, Dallas, Austin, or San Antonio? And are there things about, so say you're in Austin, that's where your audience is, that's your public. Is Dallas also part of that? Like, is there an overlap where you can sort of tap into the Dallas? So if you think about this Venn diagram as all of Texas as the public, your public is a little bit of this. And you just need to look at and identify which pieces are yours. Is this maybe it? Arguing over breakfast tacos like no one else can put an egg in a tortilla? So maybe you're a little San Antonio too, right? Maybe you all say y'all. And so now you've got one thing in common with all of that public, right? So think about who your audience is and how you can find it. What is it that overlaps and has a commonality? Think about the groups that you are currently engaged with. Church groups, community groups, social groups, knitting groups, spelling bees, yarn bombers. What is it you do with other people that constitutes a group? And what is that unique value that you bring to that group? Is that something that's needed or wanted? Is it something that you can actually build on? Can you leverage that group that you're part of into being ambassadors or advocates for your brand? How does your group communicate? So if you start looking at maybe yarn bombers, right, as your core group, and you're a yarn bomber yourself, so how do they communicate? What avenues and channels can you actually leverage from this group to reach more yarn bombers? So you've got yarn bombers Burnaby. Can you reach yarn bombers in Houston? How do you do that? You look at how they're communicating and how they're working the different channels to get messages across. I'm going to skip that one. So demographics, what you need to start looking at once you've identified your groups is all of these. You don't need to do this, but it's a good idea to get as much information as you can about the people that you're targeting. If it's employers and you're trying to build portfolios for employment, you don't need all of this information about age and gender and income and things like that. What you need to know is the type of people they hire, their hiring practices. How do they have internships? Do they have fellowships, are they ethically sound? Dig into them a little bit. You might have companies that you'd love to work for, and when you look into them a little more, you might realize that their parent companies are really crappy, that they have questionable practices, that they invest in fossil fuels. So things like that are going to help you with your content. I say all of this stuff, and I know you're all thinking, oh, that's really theoretical, and I don't really know how that's going to apply to me, which is why Magali's coming after me. She's going to tell you a little bit about how these things have worked. So keeping it fresh. Now, here's the nub. Do you have time for a full-on website? It's and a lot of people sign up for my classes in Pub 201 and 101 because, yay, we make a website and we're blogging for a semester. Oh, yeah, it's easy. It's not really, because it's a lot of time. It might be easy for some who, for those who words come easily and content is easy to create and they've figured out how they're going to do this, but it takes a lot of time even for those people. So can you put aside so many hours per week? Can you make sure you have social content to add to complement your website content? Do you have a consistent pool of talent? Can you get people to work with you and take pictures for your text? Are there things that you can work within your group or your audience and have them do the work for you? So there's a whole bunch of considerations that need to go into this, but the basic one is, do you have the time to publish a full-ass website or not? Maybe not as a student, unless it's part of a class. So then I would suggest getting a 2 or 3 page static website or Wix page. There's lots of free tools out there, and we have resources that I'll let you all have a look at in a minute, or sorry, Victoria will send out. But basically, have a look at what you really realistically can do. And the worst thing that can happen really is not to have any content and have your website go stale. And when people go to look at your digital presence, as employers will do, they'll see something that's not updated or just so out of date, or full of spelling errors and things that they get the wrong impression of you. So if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything. Same with websites. Some best practices in any kind of online content and building your brand: clear, concise, and compelling. I say this in every class I teach, no matter what it's about. Your work needs to be as clear as possible, so it's easy to pick up in at least the least amount of time possible. It needs to make people feel something. You have to compel them to feel something. Like I say, the slogan and the logo and all of that stuff and the mnemonics are going to hit something. But before all of that, you need to be compelling on your own without anything else. Your content needs to make people want to do something. Edit your work, and I can't say it enough. People will judge you. I'm sure you all judge other people. They're the grammar Nazis and stuff, right? It's so much fun picking out the mistakes of other people. But it'll happen to you too. So before you post something, read it to yourself, read it backwards, read it to your phone, have your phone play it back. Is it boring? Is it too long? Are there way too many words? Usually there are. And what can you do to make it more clear, concise, and compelling? I'm not going to talk about SEO and analytics, but those are tools that will help you if you do choose to go into doing more full websites. And even some social platforms. You should be looking at how people are engaging with your content, and I'm happy to answer questions about it later. SEO basically is this: the best place to hide a body is the second page of Google search. So you need to be on the first page, and that's what SEO is all about. I just had a few more examples, but I'm not going to go into them. I did like this example. It was a little bit, it was on the target when Trump and Kim Jong-un were having these pissing contests on Twitter, and KFC jumped in, and I thought it was really interesting how they did this, because they're KFC, and like, why, but it got a lot of traction and it got a lot of engagement, and it started a conversation about brands weighing in on political issues. And then it went on, the discussion went into more about athletes talking about politics and things like that. So it started some good conversations, and it was also really funny. What I think you could take away from this, if nothing else, is find a company or brand and follow its social posts. What does it do well? What does it do really crappy? Look at the followers, look at how they go up or down. Try and coordinate that with different posts that they're doing or different trends in news or media. What is it about that company, that brand, or that individual that is working for them? And see if you can distill that into some items of action for yourself. What do you want people to notice? This is a recap. Start looking out for brand and identity boosting memes. Could you have used Bernie Sanders at the time? And also, do you know when it's time not to use Bernie Sanders? That meme only has a short shelf life. You don't want to have done it post Bernie Sanders meme. So you gotta be aware, you have to be on top of things. If this is how you want to leverage your brand, you need to be really in the know of what's happening now and how to use that. I'm going to provide 3 different examples of a worksheet you can take home. One is a personal brand canvas, and essentially you have different categories and you have to fill them in based on your attributes or your challenges. And once you work on these a little bit, it looks a lot, but once you work on these a little bit, you'll start to get a better sense of who you are and what it is you really want to portray online. So there's the personal business model, there is the personal canvas, and then there's the brand canvas. They all do the same thing. If you're a brand, if you're a bigger company, you'd use the brand canvas. If you're an individual, you use your personal brand canvas. I'm not going to show you these, but I will show you this one. Okay, let's see if I can get it on here. Can you see the screen? Yes?
Yeah.
Get out of here. I'm sure Procrastinator is really excited. So this was a blog that was created in Pub 201 or 101?
In both.
It was created in 101, right? And then brought into 201. So this is Victoria's website. I actually quite like it. It's a book review website. You can start to see the colors she used, the different types of illustrations. It's fun, it's light, it's stars and moon, it's late night reading, it's coffee, it's tea, it's relaxing. You see all the images she uses here starts to bring in a certain feeling. Like, I want to go to bed now and read because it's rainy and crappy and I just want to do this and get some tea. She uses a lot of really nice white space, so it's not all crowded and flashy and everything really busy. I know you've seen sites that are really busy and it just makes you stressed. So, and also look at the colors she's used, right? Very light and palette-y. So she's got her list of book reviews. She's got the academics, which she won't have at some point because that's just for school. So she can take this away unless it's applicable to her brand. She's got blogs, so we can look at the types, like her writing ability. We can look at her insight. We can really get a good sense of what it is she does think about when she reads books. Is it worthwhile for me to follow her so I can get the latest reviews? I don't know. I've got to figure that out by reading some of her blog. And she makes it easy to read her blog. She makes it easy for us to look at different things that are happening. So I don't have to go back home. I don't have to keep, going back and then moving forward. And the last thing I would say, in your about section, which is basically the history of your brand, this can be really short or this can be really long. And in Pub 201, one of the things we do is to build a backstory. So you tell a story about who you are and how you came to be in this space. So here's her about section, her quick and dirty, this is me. And this is more of what she has done and how she came to be a book reviewer. And that's it for me. And I hope I didn't go over time, but I may have.
No, you're perfect.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, now we're off to Magali and her awesome portfolio site.
Thank you. Setting the bar very high. Hello, my name is Magali, and I'm going to take you a little bit on, I want to say a journey, but that's also setting the bar pretty high. I'll basically share my portfolio with you, which is a website. So oftentimes you'll hear me kind of use portfolio and website interchangeably. Of course, if you come out of this presentation and you realize that a website is not quite what you want, there's still a lot in here that is applicable to any other type of portfolio. Before we jump in, a little bit about me. So I'm in my last year at SFU. I am studying communications. I'm currently working within the field of communications, and I'm also doing a lot of freelance photography and graphic design. I love photography. That's something that I've always done from a very young age. So I actually sought out this course, or Suzanne's course, a couple semesters back, because I wanted to find a place to put all of my photos, to share them with people. So before we jump in, I was wondering if you guys could write in the chat, is there anything that you're really looking to get out of this workshop? And I'll try and tailor my presentation to that. So yeah, feel free to write in the chat. If you're more comfortable speaking up, go ahead. Cool, perfect. So portfolio to apply to co-op. Anybody else? I'll let that roll in for a second. Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Great, so lots of freelance opportunities, building an online portfolio, building a digital portfolio, doing photography, improving your photography for a portfolio, format and layout. Great, you're in the right place. This is what we will be talking about. Also, if there's at any point something that I am going over and you have a couple more questions about that and you'd like me to expand, please by all means let me know. Either type it in the chat if I miss it. Victoria might be able to speak up. Otherwise, if you're able to and if you're comfortable to just unmute yourself and jump in, don't be afraid to cut me off. So without further ado, I will start. I'll just share my screen and bring you to just the front page of my website. Okay, so I believe you should be seeing my website here. So before even creating what you see here, there was a lot of steps, a lot of writing, a lot of thinking as to what I was going to be putting into this website, into this portfolio, and why. And so that first question of why are you creating a portfolio is really going to help inform you on the decisions that you're going to take to create and curate your portfolio. So for example, is this an online resume? Are you using this as a place for future employers to see what other kind of work experience do you have? Is it a place for you to put all of your photography? Are you wanting to do more so a place to curate or to a digital repository for your writing samples or your performances? Are you wanting to land a job? Are you wanting to get clients? Are you wanting to get famous and have your works be put in museums and in billboards? Why do you want to be making this portfolio? And this will help inform all of your decisions that you make moving forward. So why did I create my digital portfolio? Well, for me, I actually, I saw in the chat that somebody was saying that they wanted a portfolio for their co-op application. Well, I remember a couple years back when I applied for my first co-op, I did my first interview. And I was confident there saying, yes, I have experience doing photography because in my mind, I'm like, well, I've had experience ever since I was little. I've done a lot of projects. Of course I know what I'm doing. And them as a responsible employer said, oh, great. Do you have a portfolio? And I was just sitting there like, oh my goodness, I don't have a portfolio. How did I expect them to trust me that I knew what I was talking about if I had nothing to show them? So that was a little bit of a moment where I was a little embarrassed. I didn't even have Instagram at the time. So I realized then that I really needed something to show people and to build that trust with whether it be clients, whether it be future employers, or even like collaborations. So for myself, primarily it's visual based. So I've always done photography, and I've started to do a little bit more graphic design as well. So here you'll see on my landing page, it is very visually driven, and I'll talk a little bit about why I made the choices I made in terms of how it looks. But what I was really looking for was a place to, one, share what it was that I was creating, but also to have to get my work out there, to tell people what I was about, who I am, um, mainly for the potential future opportunities, whether that be future employers, collaborations, networking opportunities. So something even as simple as me being here today is because of the class that I took, the portfolio that I made, and the people that I met. So I met Victoria through our publishing class with Suzanne. And had I not done those steps, I don't know if I would necessarily be here chatting with all of you. So that will help, inform you in terms of, again, why you're doing this, what you want out of it, and then how you're going to create your portfolio from there. So before you start, I also recommend you consider two important elements of your portfolio, and that again will help inform all of your decisions as you make your digital portfolio, whether it be a website, whether it be something else. So that is style and substance. So for style, Suzanne was talking a lot about colors and keeping a cohesive aesthetic. So throughout my website, I have used, again, because it's very primarily visual based, I'm attracted to websites that have sweeping like photographs on them that are very vibrant in color. I also like clean layouts, but that's my personal choice. I gravitate towards that, so I've tried to curate my website along those lines. If you don't like that, that's totally okay. That's totally cool. I would really recommend you look at other websites and see what you like. Other portfolios too, sorry, and see what you like, what you gravitate towards, what kind of styles you're attracted to. So is it somebody that has a very clean, simple aesthetic, monochromatic, or is it something that's really down to earth, super full of personality, really creative, and kind of find the elements that make that portfolio attractive to you and that brings you towards it more, and then try and emulate that and bring that into your own portfolio. So for myself, you'll see I have these really large images. I'll take you through a couple different pages. So this is my about page. Again, you'll scroll down and there's more, but immediately you have a large image, and again with portfolios, contact page. So for me, that was really important. I also really like actually, before jumping into the colors, we'll talk about a little bit. So again, style, so driven by the purpose of your portfolio. How professional do you want to be? Do you want to be, again, as if you were to be interviewing for the most quote unquote professional jobs, or are you more comfortable just being down, I don't want to say down to earth because you can still be professional and down to earth, but or do you want to be more free, and are you comfortable with that? So how much of yourself are you comfortable putting out there? Because really what this is, our portfolios, they're very personal. This is what we've created, this is what we've spent a lot of time not only making but putting together for the world to see. So you are a little bit vulnerable. So think about how much of that you want to be sharing with people. And it's a big array. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you. And this will help inform your tone and your voice. Next, you'll want to think about your substance. So again, style and substance. Substance being, for myself again, I'm primarily photography and graphic design based. So I want to make sure I find a website, a platform, or, you know, if it's a website, then maybe a theme um, or a what's the word, or a template that has the functions to do what I want it to do. So for myself, I want it to be able to show images. I want to have a gallery option. If I can't show my images, what is the point? And maybe for yourself, you want to have an area with blog posts, or maybe you also want to have a space for images. So make sure that you spend some time and find a place that has those functions, because it can be really devastating and it can take a really long time to have to start your portfolio again from scratch because you found out that you can't do what you wanted to do. It's not impossible, but it does take a little bit of time. So Suzanne did talk a lot about colors, and when I was preparing for this presentation, I looked back at my portfolio and I realized that blue and yellow have been colors that I don't necessarily love in life. It's not like my favorite colors in the world, but when I was creating my first website ever, which was a blog with Suzanne a couple years ago in Pub 101, I realized that I used blue and yellow as well, but they were very different shades than they are now. They were a lot more playful. And now I feel like the shades themselves have almost matured a little bit. And so I have this deep kind of a blue jean and a mustard yellow. And these are colors that I've used. They were actually inspired by this image here that you see. I wanted something that popped. And then these are colors that I use throughout my website. So when Suzanne talks about branding, that's something that I'm trying to convey and to make sure that I keep throughout, so there's some consistency in the aesthetic. So that's color. That's also typography. So my name here, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, okay. So I think that typography is Playfair display, and then that's my header, and then anything underneath is Roboto. So you can find anything that works with you. There's a lot of websites online if you're looking to pair two types of typography. There's a lot of information online that can help you there. So if you're not too sure where to start, online will help. Google searches will help. But I think if I had any tips for you, is to have one main typography that will be easy to read for all of your text. And then if you wanted something more ornate to have as just a title, you know, here or there, then you can have something that's complementary to it. So for example, here I have my name, and then everything else, if you scroll down, except for, actually that's a bad example, but everything else here, you're gonna have Roboto. You'll have the title, which is Playfair display, and then Roboto, which is all of the smaller text. And so if we were to jump in to different elements of a portfolio, again, depending on what it is that you're looking to do, but obviously you'll want to have a portfolio landing page, an about section I would really recommend, and then of course a contact. So a contact is super important regardless of whether you do a website, whether you do a static page or whatnot, because that's how, like, imagine meeting the best connection and not getting a phone number, or not getting an email, or a way to reach out to that person afterwards. So it's really important to have that contact page. For myself, I have created a form just because I don't necessarily want my email floating around on the interwebs, or my phone number floating around on the internet. That's totally up to you. If you're fine with that, then go for it. But this way I have people reach out, fill in a form, and it helps me weed out kind of like the spam from the non-spam. Just last week, I had somebody fill out the form, and I thought this was really funny. You might enjoy this. And in their Tell Me More section, they said something along the lines of, hey, we offer great graphic design services. Are you looking for people to fill your banners? Like, tell me what you're looking for. And I didn't answer, obviously it was spam. But I found it really funny that they were going to a website that was offering graphic design services and that was offering creative services to offer, sorry, I found it funny that they were going to my website, which is offering those services, to then try and offer me the services that I'm offering. I thought it was really backwards. And yeah, clearly these robots aren't doing a good job at reading the content that I have on my website. Or maybe I need to be making it more clear for the robots out there. So make sure you have a contact page. First and foremost, I'll take you to my about section. So Suzanne did talk a little bit about having, the quick and dirty, short and sweet portion of your about. And I think that this is something that's really important. Whether you want to add more or not, that's up to you. But I always like to see it as like a digital elevator pitch. People online don't, I mean, we all know it. We scroll. I don't want to speak for all of you, but I know I scroll a lot, and I know that I spend a lot of time doing this more than stopping and reading. So I want to make sure that if somebody is to click on this, that if they read a little bit, at least that's better than nothing. So I have a really quick snapshot about who I am, a little bit of personality, what I do, and then for those that are really interested and want to know more, then I have a little bit more of a backstory. And here in my story, I talk more about how I fell in love with photography and where that came from. And so for yourself, this might be an opportunity for you to share, your pitch. So in the first section, it could be what you do, who you are, your experience, and how that could be of use to, folks out there. Next, this is an opportunity to really bring the human aspect. I think a lot of us connect to people when they open up a little bit and when you get that backstory. So by sharing a little bit about that backstory and a little bit about yourself, you're helping bridge that connection with, again, future clients, future opportunities, future employers, and whatnot. So let me see here, just making sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, so I have included photos of myself. Again, this is not mandatory. Do whatever you're comfortable with. I would always encourage it, especially for an online, if you're doing a website or a digital portfolio, because it builds that connection. It shows a little bit of personality, but also I'm pretty sure, I think I saw some studies that showed that images that have faces perform much better than static images of just things. So people will be more attracted if they see, a face, or your face, a smiling face, as opposed to just like a tree or a backpack or a desk or a camera. People want to make sure that the person that they're interacting with on the other side of the screen is also human. So next, actually, if you scroll down here, I've included a little carousel of different employers or clients that I've worked with. I thought that this was a really good place to build credibility. So again, there's tons of photographers out there. How do I differentiate myself from anyone else? Literally anybody with a smartphone is a photographer. So it's the perpetual challenge that I'm trying to fight, or not fight, but overcome. And last but not least, so jumping into the portfolio, there's a couple aspects that I think are really important. Again, depending on what kind of portfolio you're doing, you're going to curate your portfolio according to that. So for myself, I wanted to share primarily photography and graphic design. I do work in creative services right now, but I do a lot of communications advising as well. So I can create communications products and I could do a lot of writing, but I didn't necessarily think that my website was the best place for that, because that is something that is already usually in my cover letter or in my physical resume. Then I'll have that experience. And if employers want anything else, they'll usually want a portfolio. So I didn't think it was the best place to just add more of what they already knew. Might as well show them something they haven't seen before. So for yourself, again, why are you doing this? What do you want to show? And I know that ideally we'd have everything on our website, and our website or our portfolio would be, dressed to the nines and have all the really cool elements to it. But as we're starting, start small and have the strong base, strong foundation, and the necessary skeleton to then build upon when you have more time. So we'll jump into, maybe I'll show you some example. So my photography portfolio, I'm in the process of kind of adapting it and changing it. But right now, this is a little bit what it's like. So I have, I'm the filters are gonna change, sorry. But I thought I wanted to have like a nice large display of everything. And when you're curating your portfolio, I want you to think about, the different, think about your body of work, what you want to show, and then make sure that you diversify. So you're showing a little bit about a little bit of everything. If you do photography, for instance, do you do a lot of portrait photography? Do you do a lot of outdoor photography, product shoots? Or are you doing, I don't know, architecture? Are you working primarily with clients? So you want to make sure that you're showing a little bit about everything. So here I wanted to make sure that I showed I do a lot of outdoor stuff, a lot of landscape photography, but I do some shoots with clients as well. So I wanted to kind of show a little bit of that. Next, you want to make sure that you're cutting out. So this is something that's really hard for me because every time I go out and take photos, I take about like 5,000 or 500, not 5,000, but 500. So that can really add up really quickly. But nobody wants to see, 200 photos of the same thing. So cut out and try and, again, make sure that you have a couple samples of everything within a category. So if you're making, let's say photography, you want to have a couple examples of black and white, for instance, a couple examples of product shoots or portrait photography, just to show that your range, but not necessarily to have everything on there, because you'll likely lose people. You don't want to scroll to infinity and beyond. Next, you want to make sure you update. So that's something that I'm actually in the process of doing. So instead of having just a melee of all of my photos that can be filtered, I'm actually working on my landing page of my photography portfolio having 3 distinct categories. So I want to have people, places, and products. So people, photos of headshots of clients or other images with people in them that I think are appropriate for that section. Places, I do a lot of landscape photography, a lot of, prior to COVID, a lot of travel photography. So that's a space for that to live. I recognize that unless people are wanting to buy those images, there's not much of a market for clients to seek out and say, yes, I want you to come here and photograph this mountain for me. It's not quite the same as I want to use your photography skills for a headshot or for a product shot. So I've also included or I'm working on including a section for product shoots as well. So I was playing around with this a little bit and I'm able to show you guys. So here is an idea. So once you have those 3 categories, you'd click into it and you would have some examples of some product shoots that I've been doing. So this is actually a product shoot that I did with Amaru Aromatherapy. And they, I see, I don't know if this is somebody that asked a question.
No, I think we're good.
Oh, yes. Okay. So yeah, with Amaru Aromatherapy, I started with this client, I want to say maybe a year ago, and I helped them completely. Well, so they wanted to redesign their brand, redesign their image completely, and so I made their logo for them. They went from, their first name was from nature to nurture, and it was it's a woman. She lives in Paradise Valley. She makes small batch, distills essential oils at home, and creates these beautiful aromatherapy products. So there's a beautiful story behind that, but her story wasn't really being taken seriously because she had a very handmade brand, with a very handmade logo. And there's nothing wrong with that, but she was wanting to take that a little bit to the next level. So I helped create a logo for her. And when I was building this website, I asked her if I could share her logo as part of my portfolio. And she said, absolutely. And she had a look at my website. And that's when she realized, oh, you actually do photography as well. Hey, I have this new product coming out. I'm wanting to push this whole winter collection. Can you help me with a product shoot? And that's when I said, absolutely, I would love to. And so that's a little bit of an example as to how, you know, having this platform to show my work helped build and expand on already existing relationships that I had. And now I've been helping her with doing a lot of communications advising for her brand. So social media, communications, how to use Instagram to the best of its capacity for her brand, and so on and so forth. So I thought that this was, prior to working with her, I didn't necessarily do a lot of product shoots. But since I had this opportunity, I definitely wanted to update my website. And that's the last part that I find is essential for your portfolio, and that is to update it. So as you go and spread your artist wings or your writer wings or what have you, you're going to start gaining new experiences, working on other products and projects. And so you want to make sure that you're showcasing that and keep updating your portfolio so that you're really showing the best of your skills. And like Suzanne said, you know, we're all, whatever you have came here to learn to showcase, you are that. You are a photographer, you are a writer, you are a graphic designer, and you will improve as you continue to gain experience and clients and whatnot. And so you want to make sure that your portfolio really showcases that growth. So again, 4 things that I want you to keep in mind: diversify, cut out, update, and also peer review. So make sure that you're showing this to your friends, you're showing this to your family, and you're telling them, hey, listen, I love my photos or I love my graphic design work, but I don't know. Is this photo, which one, like I only have space for 3 images, but I have 4, which should I cut out? Or these are the images here. Do you find they appropriately showcase my work? Is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything that is repeated? Having that perspective will really help. I speak personally because I get really attached if I work on something for quite a long time. It's difficult for me to cut it out just because I worked on it for so long. But to have that third person perspective to be able to tell me straight up, you know, this is not a good photo. It shouldn't be on here, or you've done better work. It may be hard to hear, but it's definitely necessary.
We
So,
do have one question in the chat.
oh
By
yes,
the way, just to
absolutely.
let you know.
Thank you. Is anyone else quietly updating their portfolio as they listen to this? Oh, okay. So the question that I see here is, did you mention in your portfolio in the project was student-based? Do you think it's important to say student work or not, just in the case the project isn't industry level quality? That's up to you. So there's a lot of work on here that is student work, and there's other work that is not student work. And um, I think it's up to the employer to look at that and say, yes, that is of my level, or this is what I'm looking for. And what I mean by that is it's I think when especially in creative services, I say creative services, sorry, in creative industries, it took me a long time to realize that I could get paid for art. I love art, but I never thought that that would be a career for me, just because, you know, that doesn't, that doesn't pay rent, or that doesn't pay the bills or what have you. But I've come to realize that actually it does, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. And if I just put myself out there as is and say, yes, this is what I do, and let the others tell you if they're looking for more, or if they're looking for something that's outside of your scope, or if they are wanting, maybe to help you build that experience. I've had people that I've worked with as well that recognize that I was a junior, very junior in online or digital communications, but they were like, well, I know you, I want to work with you, I appreciate our relationship, so I will help, like, I will give you more time to figure out how to do this product for me, just for the sake of working with you. I wasn't necessarily paid the superstar dollars for that, but I gained a lot of experience and knowledge. So to answer that question specifically, I would say it's really up to you, and I would recommend putting it there and not necessarily labeling it. So I'll just jump into my graphic design portfolio here, because I do have examples of work that I've done for clients, and work that I've done for school. So here you have the logo for Amaru Aromatherapy, and these two examples, these two Instagram carousels were actually designed for a class. I didn't say that they were specifically for school, but they were. And I think that I haven't had a client for whom I've had to do something quite this extensive in terms of creating a data visualization infographic for Instagram specifically, but I think it's really useful and could be really useful for sorry. Could be really useful for future employers. So here you'll see a little bit. I tried to create my my digital, or my graphic design portfolio, to be more, I guess, diverse maybe than my photography portfolio. So I have some logos, some banners, some social media stuff. Here you'll have GIFs. I work with Transport Canada as well, and these are GIFs that actually have been shared on their social media platform. So I know that I can share that. I've gotten the AOK, and that gives future, opportunities, proof that I have done that before, and I know how to. So it's not necessarily the nicest or the fanciest graphic, but there's a little bit of that social media aspect. So I've done a lot of posters, infographics, and then a couple icons and badges below as well. So that's some examples of, again, how to diversify a graphic design portfolio. Did I help answer that question that you had about mentioning whether your portfolio is student-based, like student-based work versus work? Awesome, cool. I am glad. Thanks, Victoria, for jumping in there. And I think we have maybe 15 minutes left or so. Just want to make sure, quick time. Yeah, okay, perfect. Great, so we talked a little bit about the aspect, like the elements of a portfolio. Next, I also want to kind of touch base on the technical elements. So this might be more website focused. I don't know how interactive static portfolio pages can be, but let's see. What I mean by this it's the differences between an image grid versus a carousel, versus a newsletter or a blog forum or a blog post or whatnot. So the difference here, you'll have, I found, because I have more than 9 things to show, a grid is really nice because people can just see multiple images, and if there's something that really calls their eye or grabs their attention, they can click on it and see it as a larger picture. What I mean by image carousel is what I did down here for all of the clients. So all of those logos, if I had that for my images, I think I would lose a lot of interest, because nobody wants to see just 3 images and then have to click to the end to see like the breadth of what I do. So perhaps, where this might be applicable is to showcase a 2 or 3 different, or maybe 5 different types of images that kind of encompass either an aesthetic or a style or a feel or look or feel that you're trying to convey. And you can have that even as a header or at the top of your page to draw people in, but I wouldn't necessarily be using a carousel to showcase my work. I would really like to have something that's a little bit bigger, like either digital portfolio that you saw. Something as well that I am trying to make sure that I'm on top of is just, and I don't even really know the technical words for this, so bear with me. But basically, I don't want people to steal my artwork is the long of the short, the short of the long of it. And I know that if I were to bring something in to my website just as an image, people can drag and drop that to their desktop and save that as an image. However, with this one, I'm pretty sure you can't. Yeah, so you can only save the link, but you can't even drag it as an image. So that's something just to consider. Maybe you want people to take your art and for them to share it wherever. That's also a choice that you can make. But just be aware that that's something that you have a say on. Yes, so just make that as an informed choice.
We also have one more question in the chat if you want to
Yes.
take a look, Magali.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, the question I see is, how do you create a website or online portfolio? Is there website templates that you recommend? Do you need to know HTML? And what's the best way to start? Yeah, great question. So I'm using WordPress, but there's a lot of other platforms online, whether it be Wix or Squarespace, or like, I'm pretty sure all YouTube videos at one point have been monetized, like have been promoting Squarespace. So you might have been hearing them. So through those platforms, it really depends on how much control you want to have and how much. I see the other question coming in here, so I'll have a look in a second here. But it really depends how much customization you want to have. So for myself, I'm a little bit anal when it comes to details. So I want to be able to change the background of my landing page. I want to be able to change the font color and the font and everything like that. Other people might not. Maybe something that will work best for you is to find a template that you really like and then plug everything in there. If that's what you want, absolutely go for it. It doesn't take as much time. I don't know the different costs associated out there. I think that for this one, it was a pretty low cost. I just had to pay to get my domain name. So magalibureau.ca. Once that was bought, I think it was like, ooh, Victoria, do you remember how much we paid?
I think it's around, like, I renewed mine this year, so it was around like $30 for like an entire year.
Yeah. So maybe like 50 Canadian for the year versus, you might have some other platforms with templates online that can either be free or you can pay for another a subscription usually. So there's lots out there. And then in terms of knowing how to code or knowing HTML, you don't need to. It does help because for this one specifically, for WordPress, you do have access to an HTML backing. So you can see like the code of your website. And if you're wanting to change something really specific, or if it's going all wonky and you don't know why, maybe the code will show you more. But the front end is actually quite user friendly. I'm just gonna see, maybe I can show you what the back end of my website looks like. And while I look for that, I'm just going to look at the other question. Apart from the home page and page dedicated to work, any other vital components to have on a portfolio site? Yes, contact page. That would be it. Home, about. A home page is usually it's automatic. I think that depends on your portfolio. You could even have one home page that has your contact, your about, and your portfolio all in one. Maybe you don't need different tabs. That's totally up to you. It depends how much detail you want to put in there. Yes, thank you, Suzanne, for sharing the Reclaim Hosting bit. That is what we have used, and it has been super helpful. So let's see if I can share my back end here. Okay. All right. Welcome to the back end of my website. I'm using WordPress. And if we look at, let's see, my about page. So I'll just jump in here. There's a lot of different plugins that you can use. So you'll see it says edit with Elementor. That's a free plugin that I can use that has helped me basically. It's a very user-friendly approach to building your website. So here you can see it actually really looks like what you're seeing, which is great because I know that the changes that I'm making, I know what they're going to look like. So that's something that's really helpful for me. So you don't need to know HTML for stuff like that. It can basically be drag and drop. However, if you wanted to have more specifications or more details, or if you have something that's going really funky on your website and you don't know where the glitch is coming from, understanding the basics of HTML can help. There's a website, I want to say it's like www .3 school or something like that, that teaches you, or that has basic code. And so if you wanted to look through that, you can, and they'll show you how to change like font color or font style and whatnot. But for this, you don't need to. If you really want to learn it, you can. It's a lot less scary and a lot less difficult than it actually, sorry, it's a lot less scary and a lot less difficult than it seems. We'll get there with words. Okay. So I just wanted to bring this up because here, so if I wanted to add an element, for instance, let's say, I don't know, we want to add a big button that says, sure, click here. So I literally just dragged and dropped an element that was a button element, and I dragged it in. So now what you would see if I were to save this and refresh is you would have my about page, everything that you saw earlier. You'd scroll all the way down, and then you'd have a green button that says click here. But I'm not going to save that. And I will, there we go, share the other one. Great. And let's see. Oh yeah, no problem. Yes, I agree. Elementor is awesome. Okay. And just making sure I'm not missing anything here. Right. So this is pretty important. Once you have your website or your portfolio, sorry, what do you do next? So for me, it's really important that, again, it goes back to your why. I wanted to create a portfolio to share my work with people, to raise awareness of my services. Are you allowed to use company logos in your website? Great question. I think it depends. I have all the companies that you have seen, I have worked with, and so I've been granted permission within that, within like to use those logos as that. So to show that these are the people that I have worked with or the clients that I've worked with. So I think, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know the copyright legalities of that. So I think that's an opportunity to look into that. Google might come through for us. I think that, right now we're pretty small, so don't use any logos that you have no permission for. Yes, thank you. There we go. Suzanne knows. When in doubt, Google and Suzanne. So yes, so what next? What do you want to do with your portfolio? Do you want to share it? Do you want to just have it be in the back end and be able to reference to it at any interview stage? Or do you want to be actively promoting it and having people engaging with it and drawing people to your website and creating all this hubbub about your name and your brand and what have you? So it depends on how much you want to put into it. Of course, creating the big brand and the hubbub and the buzz all about you will take more time, but that might yield more fruit. So it depends on what you're able to put in. For myself, another example as to how this portfolio has been successful for me. So I did mention that I was working for Transport Canada, and I started working with them just before the pandemic. And it was, at first it was a co-op position, and it was primarily just like a communications assistant. So I supported other communications advisors in their work. I did a lot of internal comm stuff, and I tried to bring in creative work and design into anything that I could. It wasn't asked of me. It was still within, like, it made sense for the products that I did to have some creative elements, but they weren't expecting it. So I tried as much as I could to bring in elements of what I loved and what I was passionate into the work. And to give you a little bit of a backstory, or a bit of background about the way that Transport Canada as a department works in terms of creative services. Now, not every department within the government of Canada is the same. You'll have federal departments versus, provincial or municipal. But federally, Transport Canada has different regions. I work in the Pacific region, and all of our creative products are made out of Ottawa. So they have one team, a one-stop shop that does all of the creative work. They're pretty great. They are great, sorry. They're pretty fantastic. They do anything from video to animation to social media and whatnot, but they're just one team, and they service all of Canada with all the different regions. So in the Pacific region, we're super, super slammed with, all the stuff that we have, and so are each of the other regions. So you can imagine the amount of work that they have to do. And so so the turnaround time might not be as fast, or sometimes you're going to prioritize some products over the others. And so my boss actually in the region recognized that we had the capacity in the region, in the Pacific region, to start making our own creative products. And he saw this, one, from the passion that I was showing through work, and from my willingness to bring in my creative skills everywhere, but also by seeing my portfolio and by saying, oh, actually, you know what? She has done some things like this before. So there's some legitimacy to the work that she's done. And he started a pilot project here in the region. So instead of going through the comms shop in Ottawa, we're able to create all of the creative products here in the Pacific region. And so that was a pilot project that started about a year ago with myself and a colleague, recognizing that the two of us had the graphic design capacity and skills to make all of the products for all of BC. So it was really cool. We've been able to do a lot of social media work, but also community engagement, stakeholder engagement. And it wasn't until then that I really realized that I could get paid to do creative work. I think I mentioned that earlier. Prior to that, I never thought I would. And so that was a really big, kind of a pivotal moment for me to really shift and realize, actually, I can do this. I can get clients. I can put myself out there and make a living and do pretty well in it. And it's not as scary, and it's actually really, really fun. So if this is something that you're interested in and that you maybe weren't too confident in, or you felt that, oh, I'm a student, my work isn't quite on par, know that you can do what it is that you want to do, and that creative work and the creative industry can be a very viable job if that is what you're interested in. Or it can also be like an added element to your job or to your portfolio. So again, I use this as a networking opportunity. Like my portfolio, I use it as a networking opportunity, as an opportunity to collaborate. So if I see other artists out there that I really like, and I think that we could do a project together, I'll reach out and I'll say, hey, I really like your work. Let's do something. I've done that a couple times with some friends that do photography. They were in town and I said, let's meet up, let's do some photography work. And let's do some like cross promotional stuff. So it'll really help build, it'll help grow your brand. It'll help grow your skills, and then also grow your network. So I'm sure that before coming here, there wasn't much needing to convince you as to the wonders of needing to create a portfolio or whatnot, obviously because you're here, but those are a couple advantages of having that portfolio. So I think that we're just about up on time, but if there are any other questions that you have, please let me know. I'm always free to chat as well. So if you wanted to reach out after this this whole presentation, let me know. We can drop our emails down either in the chat or maybe Victoria will send them out. But yeah, off to all of you if you have questions.
Yeah, thank you, Magali, for sharing your portfolio. And yeah, now it's the Q&A portion. So if anyone does have any more questions, then we have Magali and Suzanne both here to answer them. So you can pop those in the chat, or if anyone wanted to also go on mic, you're free to do that as well.
I put a couple of examples of student work that I was going to show, but I ran out of time. When Magali was talking about your work and somebody asked a question about student work and should I say it's student work or professional? To me, if the work is quality, it doesn't matter if it's professional or student or whatever category you want to put on it. I think it's just really important to believe in the work that you've done and present it as your creative output. It doesn't matter how it was or what it was created for. And if you look at this Instagram, Annika McFarland, she was a student of one of, I think both these courses, and her artwork is amazing. And it, you know, could be students or could not be students.
I guess that reminds me as well. We didn't really touch base much on social media, but I do have an Instagram widget on my webpage. So if that's something that you think is important to you, that you want to, you know, have your work be shareable on social media, then make sure that you bring that into your website or your portfolio. And also, if for those of you that already do have some sort of online presence on some social media platform, use that to your advantage. You'd be surprised, or you may not be surprised, but you'll be surprised by how many people will be willing to engage with your content just for the sake of supporting you, or reach out and actually, you know, give you work because they know you and because they want to see you succeed.
Okay. We'll leave a few more minutes if anyone were just typing like a question or anything like that, but also, yeah, if not, like we might have answered them already, but see if anyone wants to add anything, can go ahead. Oh, Suzanne and Magali, did you want to drop your emails also in the chat? Then if in case like any questions come up, then you can also, yeah, awesome, get in contact with them. That might be good. Yeah, so their emails are in the chat, so you can always get in contact that way as well. So if there's no questions, then I can wrap this up.
I just want to add one more thing. I put a note in about Creative Commons and copyright issues with using logos and things. I will just say one thing about that. It's really important to get permission. We have in Canada, we do have copyright restrictions, and mostly what would happen to you is you would just be asked to take the content down if you're using other people's logos or you're using other people's art. But the best way to do it is just to ask permission of the creator and just say, this is what you want to use it for. And usually they're really happy to share, and it can help you build an audience. And if you can't get that, then go to Creative Commons and license your own work and look for other people's work who will allow you to use their content. It's a great resource.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne, for touching on that, because I know that can get a little complicated as well. There's so many like things to consider, but always like in doubt, just good to check it out and get permission first. So yeah, I think we'll be wrapping up then. So I wanted to just give a huge thank you for Magali and Suzanne for coming today and presenting and sharing all their wisdom and experience. And I hope that you can take this and apply this to create your own portfolio, and that it's really useful to you. So yeah, just to let you know, for our next workshop, we are going to be having one December 1st, and that's going to be an intro to podcasting workshop. So really excited for that. We'll have like some more information coming out by email about that. So yeah, just keep in touch and keep looking out for that. And that'll be coming out in the next few weeks. And you can always sign up on our website as well. I'll just quickly put the link in the chat. So yeah, stay tuned on there. And then I'm just going to pass it over to Naomi for a quick thank you as well, the FCAT advisor.
Yeah, again, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Suzanne and Magali. That was such an informative session and gives us lots to think about going forward. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I also wanted to thank Victoria for organizing the workshop, this one and the other workshops we have in the series, as well as to everyone for coming. It's so nice to see it, such a cross section of students from across FCAT. So that was great to see. Thank you again. And then, as Victoria said, the next workshop is the podcasting workshop, which should be super interesting as well. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks again, Magali. That was great.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and all the students are free to go unless there's more questions. Oh, sorry, Magali, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just I think I just said it was fun.
Yeah, it was. Okay, I can end it all for us then if you guys are good. I'm just gonna stop our recording.